Yes, it's December. The elections were a month ago, but we're talking about future elections this week on Inside Iowa Politics. Hi, I'm Dave Price. Now, Iowa Secretary of State Paul Pate says he wants some changes. He wants access to make sure that people are legal citizens and thus allowed to vote. He said that was a problem in 2024. He wanted the feds to turn over some information. Didn't happen, so he went to the State Department of Transportation records, and some of those were wrong. His office had flagged about 2,200 people where it had some questions, and those people were required to prove that, yes, they were U.S. citizens. If they didn't do it before Election Day, perhaps they went in and voted and then later had to come back to prove this. In the end, the overwhelming majority of people were U.S. citizens. Several dozen people never provided proof, and some of those names were turned over to the Iowa Attorney General's office for possible prosecution. Pate wants some changes so that he can access state and federal records to prove what he says he needs to know. And he told me he does regret that some innocent people in 2024 had to face this additional obstacle just so they could vote.
How does it sit with you that in your efforts to try to maintain integrity, that there were people who were inconvenienced? So folks had to do extra stuff and extra hardships so that they could have their vote counted.
Right. Well, we wrestled with that one. I got to tell you, that's one of the reasons why those kept asking, why did you wait so long before you told us what you were doing? Because we were trying to figure out how to do it with the least amount of inconvenience to anybody. We didn't want to put a scarlet letter on anybody saying you are someone who shouldn't be voting when we didn't know that for a fact. We had questions. And so that's why we took the approach we took, where we had to use the only government list we have available because the federal government wouldn't share. And we made it clear that no one was to be told they can't vote. They were just given a provisional ballot. Unless they could demonstrate right then and there on site, then let them vote and move on. And for the most part, it went all right. The people that I've had a chance to have conversations with get it, they understand it. Some didn't like it because they'd been a citizen maybe for 4 years now, and they kind of like, well, why didn't you know it? Well, sadly, the federal government doesn't talk to the state government like they should. So when you become a U.S. citizen on the naturalization day, which I go to many of those, and my staff goes to those, they don't tell them, oh, by the way, go down to the DOT today and change your driver's license information because it's 4 years old or 6 back when you were not a citizen. They don't tell them that. So I get it, but I think we did the best we could with the circumstances. I'm not aware really of anyone who didn't get to vote that day that should have been able to vote. I regret that they had any inconvenience, but inconvenience is not necessarily impeding them. They still got a chance to vote. No one should have been turned away for that reason.
Democrats have complained about some of the changes that Republicans have already made when it comes to voting, like that you have to use an ID if you want to vote, and that the window from which you can vote early has been reduced. Paul Pate says this is all about accuracy, and he wants more changes. He wants counties to begin the recount process on the same day to try to speed that process up. And he also wants counties to use the same methods here. So if you're doing the recount, he doesn't want you to do some by hand and others to do the tabulating machine. It's either one or the other. And he also wants the counties on election day to start counting the early ballots earlier. 9 o'clock, everybody start counting what's already in there to try to speed up the reporting process rather than waiting until the end of the day to begin that process. He thinks by getting the results to people sooner, it can help build trust in the process.
Anyone who's listened to me talk enough, they'll always hear me say, we're not promising you speed on election night for results. We want accuracy, but we also understand expectation. The voters want to know. This has been something that's going on for several months, sometimes years, so they want to know if their candidate won. It's like watching a football game. I want to know the final score. Come on. So yeah, we do have to work to that avail. We're not going to stop. We've had to have our foot to on the pedal all the way down to the floor on helping make sure we battle the myths versus facts. we really have built strongly off of our 10,000 poll workers as a choir, if you will, to carry out the message of how we do our elections so people have confidence in that integrity. And I think there's a dividend. I think people got that this election. They understood what those poll workers were about.
Now, you might remember something that actually happened a couple of months before the election. In September, you had elections officials in nearly 24 states reporting that they received some kind of mysterious package. Some of them said there was a white powder inside. Some of them said that they had a threatening letter with this. This included Iowa and Nebraska. They were among these states that received a suspicious package. But what's going on with this investigation? Was it one person who did all of this? Was it one group? Paul Pate told me that he is frustrated that we don't have all the answers yet.
It is very frustrating, and I don't like to say it's part of the process because it's not acceptable. It's not a behavior I think society should think it's, oh, that's just goes with the territory. No, it's not. And it's one of the things that I really felt good about Iowa, that we've not had to spend as much time assuring the public of safety when it comes to their voting experience. And it's disappointing when we see these kind of incidences, and frankly, some of them get blown out of proportion and can cause even a bigger problem because then people really do believe it, because perception can become reality. So we work very hard, but we have to treat these as serious. So when it happens here, we put procedures in place to make sure my people here are safe going forward, and it just really leaves a bitter taste in one's mouth that that's how we have to respond.
I reached out to the FBI, which is leading this national investigation, and a spokesperson in Omaha told me that there is no update. So nearly 3 months after this all happened, we are still not aware of any arrest. That's this week's Inside Iowa Politics. Thanks for joining us.